Welcome to the ACTFoundation's Breakfast Dialogue, Connecting the Dots.
Our foundation is a grant-making non-profit entity established to support local, regional and national NGOs working hard to address challenges and associated vulnerabilities prevalent in our continent, Africa.
Some of the key words associated with entrepreneurs are that they exercise initiative. You organize ventures, you are decision makers, and you supply risk capital. Basically, those four attributes or characteristics seem to define entrepreneurs.
Humility is important. The head is really important. Your structure of partnerships is important.
Build trust, not control. When you build trust in the sector, it opens you to find out who else is in this space.
When you are dealing with social sector partners who have thought through that concept of scale, it's very, very compelling.
How can we make Nigeria and other African countries much better by stimulating the ability of, people who want to do good to do better at it?
This is more strategic. So we're now going to look internally. So if it's fundraising, what are the issues? And we bring people that in the sector that do fundraising. So we're going to begin to crux the matter. We're going to do the best that we can, but we also want to work with people to achieve those goals.
How do you face a million things? So helping to even prioritize is a huge contribution. What do we do first in civil service reforms? So that's private sector coming alongside government to help prioritize how do we work on what we do when. So it's not even if there's cash involved, but beyond that, there's also bringing in the expertise of structure, of prioritizing, of impact, and measuring and holding accountable.
If you're sitting at the table and then you're trying to talk around whether health education, and all you think about is you, my organization, like Mr. said, my organization, you can't think beyond that line.
There's a huge missed opportunity. I think maybe the only comment I have around this is how much we are losing by not consolidating, by not bringing accountability to the sector. We have a massive diaspora. And the one thing about the Nigerian diaspora is that they want to give money to Nigeria. They want to support home. And so a lot of them, because there's an absence of a coordinated set of institutions that are delivering on specific things, then they do their own side and so yes, they do it, but is it effective and efficient? We know that it isn't, because we're all doing it.
Successful, they're very focused, and they've stayed on the path of what it is that they started out in the first place. Why? Because they've been able to build a system that sustains and enhances itself. And that's what sustainability is. Impact is the measurement of the consequences, whether they're positive or they're negative. And if you start up your business, even if you're not running an NGO, you're doing the business. If you start it up without thinking about what impact am I setting up this thing to do? What gap am I going there to fill? So as a not-for-profit, what exactly is the problem that I saw and that I decided to step into, and what is that gap that I want to fill? The impact is now the measurement of that gap.
The beauty about technology is the empowerment that it provides for people. Technology should be a means to an end, not an end in itself. And seeing cases of people having transformational experiences through the use of technology, particularly when we think about digital technologies and the internet. And the internet has democratized access to information. And so it doesn't matter if you are someone in a village in Osun State. If you're online, you have access to exactly the same information as someone in Silicon Valley. And so it creates a level playing field of sorts. And when we think about sustainability and empowerment, it's for me, technology is really front and center, because technology provides the tools, the platforms that we can really use to go from A to B and ultimately to Z. and to just really empower people. One of the things that we've been focusing on is raising the level of digital awareness and participation in the region. So in 2016, for example, we pledged to train 1 million people across the continent and in 1 year. And we saw a lot of great success stories from that. And last year, we expanded that commitment to train 10 million people across the continent in 5 years. Every year, we have about 11 million people entering the job market, but we're only creating about 2 million jobs. You know, one of the worst things a society can create is people that have nothing to lose.
The Employment Trust Fund has been set up by government as an institutional framework to address job creation in Africa's largest city. I think that yourself and a few other people have alluded to the fact that it's just a disaster waiting to happen if we don't address the unemployment issues. And so in terms of the state and government understanding what role it plays, it has set up the Employment Trust Fund. And what we're realizing is once you have the infrastructure in place, which is what Juliet was just talking about, then you begin to attract the partners to work with you.
So for us, one of our major stakeholders is actually the community, because without the support of the community, most of the work we do would not be successful. And I think it's because of the impact within the communities that, our work has attracted more organizations and more partners. There's usually one story I like to give, especially when it comes around inclusion, of a particular community that, had women going to the stream and almost another 1 hour coming back. And so they felt the solution of that problem was to build a borehole right in the middle of the community. And so they brought their trucks and everything, and in 2 weeks was a huge borehole with clean, fresh, pure water. And they left. And 6 months down the line, they came back and no one had used the water. The women had not used the water. The community was not using the borehole, and it got destroyed. And the reality was because there was no community-inclusive approach in finding out what the solution of that problem was. For the women, that was the only way for them to leave their husbands, their families, bond, gossip, engage with themselves while they are going to the stream. And even though the water in the stream was not the cleanest, but for them, that was the only way they could get some kind of freedom.
And so when Junior Achievement first came into Nigeria, we thought that we just had to customize the worldwide programs to Nigeria. And increasingly, we're finding that with the partners that we're developing and the beneficiaries that we're reaching in different parts of Nigeria, we actually need an even more customized product by region. Because when you go to the Niger Delta, the issues there are very different from the Northeast or the Southwest. And so recently we started this regional strategy where we're developing, it's still entrepreneurship, but around looking at the regional resources, looking at the opportunities within the region, and then empowering the beneficiaries to be able to develop, design-centered, people-centered design, where what are the issues within this community? What are the natural resources that we have? What are the human resources we have? And how can we develop a business that uses all those resources to make money, but to also develop the community? So an example is a program that we're doing with ACTFoundation, where it's called My Business, My Region. We're looking at the Southwest region. And it's actually looking at businesses where entrepreneurs have looked at problems and developed solutions.
So because we already know it's not possible to be successful without supporting your communities, the Dangote Group does every project from boreholes where the factories and the plants and the projects are, to roads, to schools, to hospitals, to scholarship schemes. So there's a necessary connection between running your business and the community in which you operate. But then your customers are also part of your community, right? So without your customers, you don't have a business. So the idea of making sure that you're seen as a company that cares and is doing the right thing and that is helping is absolutely necessary. And I think what Yao was saying about you're not going to be successful if you don't think about how do we manage the environment, how do we not pollute, how do we make sure that we're not destroying farmland around us, how do we make sure that for our own sustainability, we need to put these things in motion.
I mean, we're at a place in terms of the world and the SDG goals where we're all asking ourselves questions. And how do we accomplish those goals? What do we need to do to get there? And one of the things that we're talking about, even in the last dialogue, was talking about fostering a lot of relationships and partnerships. And we thought it should be the next progression. I mean, just even listening to them today, we already have 2 organizations that already said, okay, we need to work together to accomplish more. It's the same dialogue you hear everywhere. You can go far alone, we can go further together, and we're trying to push that conversation and say we cannot walk alone. We have so many things that we need to solve, so many challenges out there, and we need to work together to accomplish those goals. What we've also done with all the grantees, we've asked them who else do they need to work with amongst themselves. We have a grantee now in Lagos that is doing a cancer screening. We've asked another grantee to work with them because there's no point in reinventing the wheel. If someone already has the screening tools, use them. So all those things that we're doing, we just need to push faster. We need to be able to say that there are more people getting the benefit from what we're doing. And one of the things you hear a lot of people say that a lot of organizations are based in Lagos, always do Lagos programs, but that's what we're not a Lagos or Nigerian-based organization, we're an African organization, and we're trying to push that even furthermore this year. This year alone, as you mentioned, we're doing even more states, more communities, more beneficiaries. But this year also we got a lot more applications from Africa, from the rest of the world, and hopefully we are intending to go to other African countries next year. This is just our second year, but we're doing it in steady progressions as well. We want to make sure that when we are focusing on these challenges, we're actually seeing the solutions, not just saying the numbers. We want to be able to see the impacts that a lot of these organizations are doing in the communities, and that's what is important to us. Sometimes we sit down in this discourse and we have a lot of conversations, but what's the impact? What are we doing? Are we actually doing or just saying? So it's one of the things we also talk to our grantees about. We tell them that impact must be, you must see it. Don't tell me you have taught 10,000 lives. How has that changed the lives of the people in their communities? So just do it. And when people come to me, I think I want to start a project, I'm not sure, I'm just like, well, what are you waiting for? You don't know what's going to happen, just go ahead. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. And if we have these challenges, keep on buttering up. We need to find solutions to all these challenges as well. Yes, we need to work as a tripod, the government, the public sector and private sector. But we need people to take ownership, foster the ownership, foster the partnerships and say, who else can we work with? We cannot work in isolation. I keep on repeating it. We need to work in partnerships to accomplish more goals, and we need to just do it as fast and as quick as we can.
Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, Chairman of ACTFoundation, Mr. Tunde Folawiyo, let me start by thanking you all for attending the third ACTFoundation Breakfast Dialogue. I'm particularly delighted that we are here for a discussion on what we all view as a persistent issue, not only in our region, Nigeria, but also throughout the continent. Today, we will be looking at some of the promising new approaches and emerging strategies in the social and global growth. In particular, we'll look at how we can co-create solutions to the complex social challenges and complement state capabilities to overcome development deficits. We see this platform as a platform, or this event as a platform for improved synergy among stakeholders in social, public, and private sectors to engage for sustainable development in the continent, and which is focused on creating discussions that are necessary to develop transformative strategies and perspectives in maximizing the social development potentials for the continent. Growth in the development sector plays an integral role in helping multi-sector organizations to thrive and find new growth prospects. And of course, strategic partnerships helps to scale organizations. For example, The partnership between ACT Foundation and Access Bank has partnered with well over 47 organizations to drive social impact across communities in the continent. It is important for organizations to engage in this kind of dialogue and to be forward-looking and intentional towards supporting social and global impact in their communities.
I want to commend the ACT Foundation for the good work they are doing in multi-stakeholder platforms to build relationships and leverage on core knowledge, skills, resources, and assets to facilitate the necessary skill needed to drive social development in a global progressive order. The challenge is clear. The challenge of leadership, because without effective leadership, it will be impossible to achieve the true social and economic development. Because I believe that if businesses scale geometrically, they will optimize the jobs they create and will have shared prosperity.
Experience a bit of a challenge when it comes to talking about what it is that they do. We want to be altruistic, but at the same time, we want to talk about what we do. We don't necessarily want to toot our own horn, but at the same time, people should know what we're doing. And it'd be good to know how T.Y. Danjuma navigates that.
Thank you, ACT Foundation, and thank you, Access Bank, for inviting the foundation to come and share experiences here. Instead of the foundation going out there to talk all the time about the work we do, we would like to inspire and encourage beneficiaries to be the bearer of the message. So somebody who benefited from a free cataract surgery and who have now recovered their sight should be the person talking about the story and not the foundation necessarily talking about it directly. And by navigating that pathway, we found a very interesting way of communicating the work of the foundation.
What would you say are the drivers of social impact?
Really good place to start, Madupe, and thank you very much. Let me first thank the ACT Foundation and Access Bank for putting this event together. This is a demonstration of their leadership in the sector by engaging us in a very critical conversation. So thank you very much indeed. To your question, you know, one of the things that causes paralysis is when you look at a problem and it looks so complicated. And as you know, I was a consultant at some point. And I realized that to remove that paralysis, maybe it's easier for us to just simplify things. So when we look at social change and we talk about global impact, I mean, there's so many multifaceted dimensions of it. So let's break it down into what I call the 4 pivotal P's. You see, I came with my own model as well, right? And the 4 pivotal P's are 1, people. The second is power. The third is profit. And the 4th is planet. First is the role of the individual. There's always this assumption that it's the big corporate giants, it's the big governments that need to do something that will make an impact. But they say that, you know, tiny drops of water make a mighty ocean, meaning that that drop of water actually matters. So the role of the individual is actually critical. Secondly is when we look at the resources that are moving around the world globally. I mean, we're getting more billionaires, more millionaires. And again, we look at the amount of aid that's been spent on developing countries. But we don't really see results. But the question is, how do we really even begin to think of those results? Is it about skyscrapers, bridges and roads? Is it about steel and mortar? These things are important. But at the end of the day, the focus really should be about dignity. How all our efforts, be it in the private or in the development sector, bring dignity to people. And at times, dignity is not about money. It's about so many multifaceted things that I'll talk about later. And I talk about this a lot in my book, titled Development is Dignity, as well as the TED Talk that also focuses on that.
For-profit company should think about social. It's not only profit in terms of monies. Social means what? It means labor, but it also means your customers. So most of the time, the models that we have been copying and pasting, excuse me, it may sound very political. It's the capitalistic model. You squash everybody to make profits. So making profit is not bad, but making sure that you share it with everybody that contributes to it is a must.